You'll definitely recognize my next guest's voice from local concerts, events, and church services in Sonoma. Not only is she a gifted classical singer, a writer, and a director, but also a very successful vocal coach and singing teacher. Sheila Whitney and I talk about the Sonoma Chorale, church music, music in the Sonoma Plaza, and gigging.
So I gotta ask, so I gotta ask, what, so I gotta ask, so I gotta ask, what, so I gotta ask, so I gotta ask, what, so I gotta ask.
I'm Joshua Farrell, and this is So I Gotta Ask.
Hi, Josh.
Hi, Sheila. How are you?
I am really well, thanks. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous day. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm sitting here. I live in Los Angeles. It's a gorgeous day, but I had foot surgery on Thursday, so I'm stuck in my bed. And
well, so you have time to chat.
This is so I was like, I don't do well with idle time. I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna go crazy. The doctor says I got to be in bed for like 2 to 3 weeks. I'm like, you know what?
Oh, wow.
Maybe I'll do like a weird podcast thing. I've actually never done a podcast ever, but I'm like, oh, maybe I'll just interview some people about a subject that I'm curious about, which is Sonoma and music. So I thought I'd talk to some people about what their thoughts are on the Sonoma music scene and what their experience was in it and why they think that it is what it is, whatever that means.
It's pretty special. I would say I have to agree with you. I think there's a couple of reasons why. There's this wonderful confluence here between rich people and artists because there's wealthy people here, so they can afford to go out more and they can afford to support artists more, and they do. That's just the community that we're in. Actually, I've been thinking that the venues have been diminishing of late, but I think they are still around. But there is also a nice variety of music too. It's not just blues. We got nice jazz. I'm on the board of the Sonoma Valley Chorale, and I was a soloist with the chorale for a long time. And this is our 50th year as a chorus. So community chorus, people can show up. They don't have to audition. So people getting together and singing together. So there's that. There's
Wait, did you say you don't have to audition for the chorale?
Yeah, you don't have to audition.
I love
anybody.
That. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's the true heartfelt community chorus. Just anybody who wants to, and it's not. We don't do rock and roll. We just have a new conductor. His name is Travis Rogers. He taught Napa Valley High School chorus for 37 years, and now he just really loves the idea of a community chorus. It's just. These things are music, I think, in general, is community building, and choruses when all these ramshackle voices get together and make a beautiful sound together it's a huge thing. So I'm so happy to be part of it.
I remember going, the Vets Hall forever when I was a kid. We would go to see the chorale. And I just literally got on the website this morning because I was like, oh, maybe I should interview someone from the chorale. And then I saw your name on there. I was like, oh, well, there you go. Okay.
Yeah, I'm a board member. I'm not singing with them. I'm just on the board, and I just really feel great to be able to give back because they supported me for so many years. It was amazing.
Did you grow up in Sonoma?
I didn't. I moved here in '93 when I was divorcing from my husband. And my parents lived here at the time, so my mom could help me out raising my son, who was 3 at the time. So, I've been here almost 30 years now.
And were you singing before that, and then you came to Sonoma, and you're like, oh, all right, maybe I'll just continue? Or how did
exactly
that...
Right. So I graduated from Dominican University with a performing arts degree in classical singing, opera music. And then I just continued to take lessons here. And the woman from Karen Connor, and her mom was Joanne Connor, pianist. She was the pianist for the chorale. And I think Karen, I don't know if she was singing with the chorale at that point, but she just suggested that I audition and get in the chorale. And that's why I did that. I remember singing the Mozart Requiem with them. I was the soloist with the Mozart Requiem. It was extraordinary. We had like 200 people in the chorus at that time. So
200.
that was amazing. Yeah, like 200. I think we might have had more at one point.
Where would you rehearse with 200 people at the Vets or?
Yes, we rehearsed at the Vets. I believe we did. Yeah, it was not so expensive then. It's pretty pricey now, like everything else.
Of course.
We rehearsed there. Mm-hmm.
So you come to Sonoma and you're just like, oh, cool. There's this giant chorale. I'll jump in that, and then.
Yeah. And I auditioned for solos, and it's just a great way to keep your chops in it, right? And we had full orchestras back then, and so it was an extraordinary experience to have Jim Gruey, who was, of course, the guy who started the chorale. He did a really great job, and since then, David Irvine was the conductor, and then we were shuttered for 3 years because of COVID, and we had our first concert just this last December in Burlingame Hall. That's where the First Congregational Church is. And we were packed to the gills. We sold that concert out. So people were obviously very hungry to have another concert. So we started off with 45 singers, and we have now 65, almost 70 singers. So
that's awesome. I love it. All right. So I just want to go back to something you said. So maybe there's at some point there's 200 plus people, but there's also the musicians to support it. So those are all Sonoma people too. Is that correct?
I'm not sure. Travis does have a lot of connections in the Napa Valley, and I think he likes to work with musicians with whom he's worked before, but he's not exclusive to that. So yes. So I don't know about the last concert. We had a harpist. She was from Marin. And then we just had a stand-up bass and a violinist and a pianist. So it was not by any means a full orchestra. And it's still going to be pretty specialized instruments for this next concert coming up on St. Patrick's Day. But I think we want to make our way towards having an orchestra for sure.
My gosh, I'm just fascinated with the 200 count. And also actually fascinated with 65 people. That could happen that quickly. But again, Sonoma, I mean, it's such an artist town. I think of like all of the arts have been around the town, definitely just kind of funnel into like, oh, naturally music would be one of those things. I was just this morning thinking there's a bell choir in Sonoma too.
Yes, I think they were, a couple of churches have bell choirs, and I think they still do at St. Andrew, but I think that might be the only active one.
Is that the one that I think Kay Adams is a part of that one. Is St. Andrews the one that's over near the old police station, like near Shell Station?
St. Andrew is on Arnold Drive on your way to Glen Allen.
Oh, out there. Okay.
Presbyterian Church, yeah. I think that's the only bell choir that I know of that's still putting together a program. I can't be 100% sure about. And Kay Adams, of course, is in charge of the Vintage House Singers. So
Kay does the Vintage House Singers? All right. Her and Al are best friends with my parents when my parents were alive.
Oh, awesome.
So Vintage House has a choir now. Oh my, this is getting better. This is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go down the rabbit hole.
A lot of the people that are in the Vintage Choir are also in the Sonoma Valley Chorale. they double dip. So they have and the Vintage House Singers is a daytime rehearsal, right? So not nighttime.
I mean, why not? Double dip. Sing as much as you want.
Exactly right.
I feel like when I retire, like that's definitely going to be like part of my jam. I'm going to join a choir. Should join a choir now.
It's good for your oxygen intake, and just good for the, good for the socialization. Get out there. These people are friends. You make good music together. You share vibes together. Good thing.
I also feel like it's a good, not that you need to go into a room and close a door and scream or anything like that, but when you sing, you really are emotionally letting it all out, which is probably good just to get it all out at some point.
Yeah. I think I think there are more boundaries certainly, and when you have to sing with others, you have to play nice in the sandbox kind of thing. But But I do believe it takes your mind off of any troubles you might be having for a couple of hours on a Tuesday night. That's when our rehearsals are, and you just leave there in a better space, because not only is singing give you oxygen, but it's just the vibrations that go through your body. It's it's just, as a human expression, it is the oldest.
Right. And I bet you probably get endorphins from it, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think so.
Every Tuesday night is rehearsal for the chorale?
Yeah, Tuesday night, 7 to 9.
What a great, I love it. So you do the chorale, and then my mom, I don't know how, honestly, I don't know, I probably know your name through Joe and through Phil too, but I feel like my mother used to talk, would you ever do stuff with the Jazz Society?
I never did, maybe one or two shows with the Jazz Society, but I did sing jazz for a while with my friend Greg Grabo. We had started our first shows at the Barking Dog in Boise, and we had the father-son duo of what's his name? Wonderful jazz guitarist, and his son, who went to Berkeley School. He plays bass. Oh gosh, I gotta remember who these people are. But so we started there. Greg Grabo is a wonderful harmony. He just sings harmony. He can sing. He was just one of those guys that could sing harmony really well. Just had these intimate little shows that were charming, and the ice machine would come on in the middle of it.
I remember seeing a couple of shows out there. I always liked it. Did you because I just feel like I hear, like, honestly, when I was writing down names, I heard my mother say your name in my head, and I was like, oh, Sheila Whitney, I think I have to track this person down. My mother was a big fan of going to see, I was a stage actor for a long time, so she was a big fan of supporting the arts all the way till probably within the year that she died. She was still going to see plays, at the community center, or out at what's the big group that always does the thing out at Jack London? Transcendent, and she would just go see. When I was a kid, we would go see musicals at Santa Rosa Community College, to go to ACT in San Francisco, go anywhere. She just loved going to watch singers and performers. Absolutely loved it.
Hard, because that's performers need an audience, and just there's something about that, the exchange of energy between an audience and a performer that is just so rich.
You know what I like about Sonoma too, it seems, and I'm curious what your thoughts are on this. It seems like a lot of artists go support other artists. Like, I always see people, which is nice. Like, that's really very community based. But there's always, I remember Phil had like a Sunday night jam for a while out at Blue Moon, and it was amazing how many artists came to jam, but also how many musicians just came to watch other musicians and singers perform. And do you feel like that's a big part of why it continues in Sonoma?
Absolutely. It's a real tight knit group, and they'll just they'll use each other. Yeah. Like Sean Karskadden's band, all those guys play in all these other bands. And have you spoken, or have you heard of a guy named John Arntz?
I've heard of John Arntz, but
yes, started this whole live band karaoke.
What?
And he's wonderful. Yeah. So
live band karaoke? Where's that at? Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
So that right now they got started at the Starling Bar, which was the Valley of the Moon Saloon.
Yep.
And then they outgrew the place basically, and they were using where the Little Switzerland was, right? And then they just
Real
sold.
Brand.
Yeah, Real and Brand. So they just sold, and so they didn't have a place. So they're actually in Nevada right now, but I think they're hoping to come back to Sonoma. So basically, he got together a group of musicians, and they would take requests from singers like a month out or a couple of weeks out, and then the band would learn the song, but the band would not rehearse with the singer. And then the night of, the singer just gets up and the band plays their song and the singer gets to sing. And there's just some phenomenal singers out there. He's really started a movement.
That is awesome. I love that they don't rehearse.
Yeah,
That adds like a great element to it.
Yeah. The band rehearses, but the singers don't get a chance to polish or anything like that. So but it's just also a way for singers, beginner singers, to just like borrow a band, like what's it like to play with a live band? He's really, yeah, I'm just so thrilled.
Oh my gosh, that's great. And then there's, gosh, my buddy Doug's son Rowan I just watched it online, which is great that you can, one thing out of COVID is watching all these performances online, which for me, I really loved. Nothing beats a live performance, but the Mikey, I think it's Mikey Cannon's got the School of Music, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like there's just so much stuff going on in this town. Of course I grew up there, so I'm like, it's a tiny town. I mean, it's a relatively small town. There's so much music stuff going on in such a small town. I'm constantly kind of amazed at how many different elements exist.
It's true, and it's really even become more and more varied. I mean, there's just more stuff out there. When I first moved here, I mean, I could like make a splash because there wasn't a whole lot of jazz singers out there. But now there's a ton more, which is so great. And so I just kind of went back to my wheelhouse, which is classical singing, so I'm the soloist at St. Francis Church, and I sing at weddings and funerals. So that's my bread and butter. Not bread and butter, but that's just another way of making money, and it's possible here in this town, right? So, and I let the jazz singers to the younger ones. So that's kind of cool. Maybe someday I'll get back in it but I've been having some issues with my voice, so I'm working that out. But
right. Well, I got to ask you because I didn't know this. Music with weddings, but let's talk about funerals because I always think it's an amazing time to celebrate someone's life, and there's also all this stuff going on. What is that process? Do they usually come to you with a music choice? Do you have a selection of songs, or how does that work? How do you navigate that?
Within the Catholic Church, there are very specific boundaries about singing, when you can sing a secular song and when you can sing a sacred song. And generally, most people have their favorites. Ave Maria, of course, On Eagle's Wings. So there's pretty much a set group of songs that people choose, and they either get, if they knew me well, they'll get a hold of me, but generally they'll get a hold of either the funeral parlor will call, depending on which church the services is. So at St. Francis, it's John Simon. So and I'm John Simon's funeral gal, So he'll call me, but he will work out with the people which songs to sing. And so, like for instance, next Wednesday, I'll be singing Con te partirò, that huge song that bland tenor usually sings, Time to Say Goodbye, that one.
Okay. Wow. I
know, that's a big song, huge song. So, but then generally the songs come out of the Catholic Missal, the hymnal, Catholic hymnal generally. And
you get to sing inside, it sounds pretty darn good in St. Francis, I got to tell you.
It's a classic acoustic double box, so it's got some really nice acoustics in there. So it's I love singing at funerals. In fact, I would much rather sing at a funeral than a wedding, as you suggested. It's just people are so present; their hearts are cracked open. They are so appreciative and present. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, it's really special. I remember I was an altar boy at St. Leo's. Not as good as acoustics as St. Francis, but still, we had a pretty darn good choir band. And back in the day, Monsignor O'Hare would whip out. He had a harmonica. He literally.
Oh.
Monsignor O'Hare would play harmonica during Mass, and God bless Monsignor O'Hare. He also would come over and drink a lot of wine with my parents at the house. but yeah, he could whip it up on the stage at St. Leo's. So I'm so glad you brought that up, because I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I always forget that, but you're like, oh, that is actually, and you said bread and butter, but that is an honest that's a job, which is
Yep.
pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's a great job to have. I feel honored to have that job, and there aren't a lot of people in the valley that sing classically, really. So there's a lot of people singing rock and roll, blues, jazz, pop, but not a whole lot folk singers, right? But not a whole lot of classical singers that I know of that live here and get those classical gigs. So
And then you teach as well, is that correct?
yes, not only do I teach singing, but I'm also, during COVID, I expanded to include helping people to curate a more compelling speaking voice,
Oh,
getting
nice.
rid of getting rid of the ums and ers, the filler words. Stop with the upspeak every time you say a sentence, or the fry voice. That is so popular right now.
Right. The fry and the upward inflections. Oh my
Correct, and
gosh.
the filler words are huge.
As I say, now I'm really
That,
conscious, Sheila.
I, the pause,
Sheila.
the pause is so powerful. It really is powerful, and it allows people the time to soak in what you just said.
Yes, people forget that, that people used to ask me a lot about acting and like, what is the number one thing of acting or whatever the question is, but it's listening. It's always listening.
Yes.
And people forget that. It's not talking, it's actually the pause of taking in the information and being present with somebody. But, people get nervous. I was just talking to somebody. I occasionally help people with speech as well. But we get nervous, so we talk faster and we just do run-ons because we're nervous. And it's like, hey, it's
That's
okay
right.
to like relax and have silence so people can
Exactly.
take in what you're saying, because you just sound a little crazy if you're just running on.
Get rid of most ands. You don't need as many ands, like you said, the run-on sentence. Also, vary your melody, because people don't know. If people know how you're going to sound, whether it's a particular melodic pattern or a rhythmic pattern every time you talk, people think, when they think they know how you're going to sound, they think they know what you're going to say. So they just turn off their ears. So it's good every once in a while to just vary the melodic pattern.
Yeah. We just literally, I think a few days ago, watched Bueller. And you're like, okay, that's the perfect example of the opposite of what you're saying. Uh,
Exactly.
which is still, the movie stands up, by the way. I'm like, wow, this movie's still really good.
And I do teach singing as well. I don't have a lot of students. I have maybe 10 students right now. So that's plenty. I'm in my 60s, so that's plenty for me. I'm not really interested in working so hard anymore.
And you said that you feel like there's less venues in Sonoma, but does that fluctuate? Is that your experience since moving to Sonoma, that it kind of ebbs and flows? And now there's more tasting rooms, so I feel like sometimes there's more jobs, but maybe I'm not in the middle of it. But I was just curious what your thoughts are in terms of the ebb and flow of how much availability there is for people to gig.
I think that COVID really kicked the industry a good swift kick. It was hard. So I think that they don't want to spend the money necessarily, but there's always wineries. I think that the Saturday or Sunday afternoon background guitar scenario at the wineries. Sean Karskaden again has made, he's made a career. Thank God for a Hop Monk, because they're really big proponents of live music, and they continue to have live music in all of their venues, as I recall. So,
Yeah, they always
uh,
seem to have a full house too. Like it's like, or I mean, a full house meaning a full slate. Like it seems like they're very committed to consistently getting music in there. It's
yep,
not. It doesn't like, oh, we'll have one on Monday and we'll wait 3 weeks. It's like they're pretty consistent.
I think it's part of their mission statement. I do, just that to support music. And then huge place down in Nevada, they have music going all the time in Sonoma, and of course the festival. So yeah. So regarding your question, I think it does ebb and flow. I would agree with that. But I have noticed, like, things closing down, restaurants closing down, or just don't have the money to pay music, even though it would enhance the diner's experience in some venues. I was once in a restaurant up in Mendocino, and there was a pianist there, and my boyfriend leaned towards me and he said, "Do you think if I went and gave that guy a real big tip, he'd stop playing?" Yeah.
I have to say, there's this old bar at a restaurant in our neighborhood in Eagle Rock, which is in Los Angeles, but it's got a piano in the restaurant. It's been around since the 50s, and it's
I've been
really
there.
it's
I live in LA too, yeah.
Yeah, it's really horrible food, but I don't care. I actually took Joe Hirschheft there, and he loved it. We had horrible Italian food, but we got to listen to live music while we ate dinner, and I don't know, there's something absolutely fantastic about it.
I agree. It's so civilized.
Yeah. I think the drummer the drummer might have been in his 90s. I was like, oh my gosh. But drummers, I don't know. The drummers last.
Steady.
Steady.
Yeah, exactly.
Slow and steady, for sure.
Just give me some brushes there, Mac,
Well, I think that covers it. I wanted to get a little glimpse of music in Sonoma from your point of view. I'm so glad that I talked to you, because I'm just fascinated with, again, the music scene in Sonoma. And as you said, you showed up in 1993. It's stayed pretty consistent, if not grown and kind of ebbed and flowed, but it's always been there. And it's pretty, I don't know, you look at other smaller towns, I can even say for Napa, for sure. I feel like there's more music sometimes going on in Sonoma than in a bigger city like Napa or the Napa Valley.
Well, the difference is the people playing music in Sonoma are all from Sonoma. The people playing music in Napa are like people that are tour, they come through and they run their tour through there. This is all homegrown here, which is what I really love. And one fun thing that the city council did, not city council, but the city, whatever person who's in charge of events, they're throwing a lot more stuff at that theater out there. What do you call it? The open air theater during Christmas.
The Grinstead, like in the middle of the square?
Yeah. So during Christmas, for like a week in the holiday, they had some live music every day playing there, or just wandering around the plaza. And so I just think there's something about our town that really, well, you're right. There's something special about that. I think in Napa, I don't know, maybe in Napa they have some, but because we have the plaza, because we have the square, it's a unifying factor. It brings the people together. There's nothing like that in Napa or Petaluma, or nothing like it. It's just different.
Yeah, I agree. It's a gathering place. It's just very, it's always, and that's been the way it's been for a long time. It's certainly my entire childhood was, I'll meet you down at the square for whatever reason. That was to play when I was 5 years old, or to party when I was 25 years old.
Exactly. And you see everybody down there you run into for friends. It's just, I think that's a huge factor to the whole scene here.
Well, I think we'll finish on that note. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me.
Well, thank you, Josh. It's been a real pleasure.
All right.
Have a great day.
Have a great day. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. That was Sheila Whitney. My name's Joshua Farrell. I like talking to people about making art, music, acting, hospitality, and just about anything. If you like books, I've written a couple. The Sonoma Police Report, a little oddball glimpse of Sonoma Valley from 1980 to 2010 through its very funny police logs from the Index Tribune. And I recently wrote a book called Counterculture, an essential guide for service, about providing, well, you guessed it, great service. Check them out at your local bookstore first, and if you don't have one of those, you can always find them online. Thanks for listening, and come back soon. I should have some more interviews. Bye.
So I